I stared at the screen in the hospital waiting room, my hands trembling as I read the message. Visiting privileges revoked. Patient request. Do not attempt entry to ICU. My mother was dying. Stage 4 cancer. The doctor said she had days, maybe a week, and now I couldn't see her. I'd driven 6 hours from my place in Kelowna to Vancouver General Hospital. My daughter Emma knew I was coming. She'd called me yesterday, crying, saying Mom was asking for me, that I needed to hurry. Now the charge nurse was walking toward me with a security guard. Mr. Patterson? She looked uncomfortable. I'm afraid there's been a situation. What situation? My voice came out steady, though my heart was pounding. I'm here to see my mother, Dorothy Patterson. Room 412. The nurse exchanged a glance with the security guard. Your daughter Emma filed a report with our patient advocacy office this morning. She's provided documentation that you've been financially exploiting Mrs. Patterson. There's also a concern about your mental state. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. What? She's submitted bank statements showing irregular transfers from your mother's account to yours. She's also provided text messages where you allegedly threatened her and her husband when they questioned these transactions. The nurse's voice was gentle, but firm. We take elder abuse very seriously here, Mr. Patterson. The security guard stepped closer. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. If you refuse, we'll have to call Vancouver police. Behind me, an elderly couple waiting for their own visit tried not to stare. A volunteer at the information desk had stopped mid-conversation. Everyone was watching the 63-year-old man being accused of abusing his dying mother. Pull up the actual bank records, I said quietly, not whatever Emma showed you. Call the Bank of Montreal on Granville Street and ask them to verify the authorization on every single transfer. The nurse blinked. Sir, we can't just... And while you're at it, I continued, my voice still calm. Check the visitor log for this hospital over the past 3 months. See who's been here every single day. Then check the security footage from the parkade from yesterday at 4:47 p.m. You'll want to see that. The security guard's hand moved away from his radio. What's on the footage? My daughter and her husband having a very interesting conversation about timing. Something in my tone made the nurse pause. Wait here, please. Don't move from this waiting room. She disappeared down the corridor. The security guard stayed, but his posture had shifted, less aggressive, more uncertain. I sat down in one of those awful plastic chairs that every hospital seems to buy in bulk. My phone was in my pocket, heavy with evidence, but I didn't pull it out yet. Let them check. Let them see what a real investigation looked like. 27 minutes later, the nurse came back. Her face had changed. Mr. Patterson, I need to apologize. The bank confirmed that every transfer was authorized by your mother, with her own password and security answers. They also confirmed you've been the one depositing money into her account, not taking from it. The security guard looked at his feet. And the parkade footage? I asked. The nurse's voice dropped. I think you should come with me. The patient advocate wants to speak with you. So does our hospital administrator. We walked past the ICU desk, where 2 other nurses pretended to be busy with charts. In a small conference room, a woman in a blazer was waiting with a tablet. Mr. Patterson, I'm Jennifer Chen, patient advocate. I've just reviewed the security footage you mentioned. She turned the tablet toward me. This was recorded yesterday at 4:47 p.m. in Parkade Level 2. On the screen, Emma and her husband Mark stood beside their Lexus. The audio was tinny but clear. Emma's voice, he'll be here by noon tomorrow. That's when we tell the nurses. Mark, you're sure about the timing? If he gets in to see her? Emma, he won't. I filed everything this morning. By the time he arrives, security will already have the alert. He won't get within 50 feet of her room. Mark, and if she asks for him? Emma's laugh was cold. Mom's sedated most of the time now. She won't even know he tried to come. And once she's gone, we'll have power of attorney executed. The house in West Van alone is worth $3.2 million. I watched myself on that screen, watched my daughter conspiring to keep me from my mother's deathbed for money. The same daughter I'd raised alone after her mother left when she was 6. The daughter whose university I'd paid for by working double shifts at the mill. The daughter whose wedding cost me $45,000 because she wanted it perfect. There's more, Jennifer said quietly. She pulled up another file. We contacted your mother's lawyer, Andrew Morrison. He's been trying to reach you for 2 days. My phone's been acting up, I said. Service issues, driving through the mountains. Mr. Morrison informed us that your mother updated her will 6 weeks ago. She was very specific about her wishes regarding Emma. Jennifer hesitated. She also left a sealed letter with instructions to give it to you upon her death, or if Emma tried to prevent you from seeing her. Mr. Morrison is bringing it now. 30 minutes later, I sat beside my mother's bed. She was asleep, morphine drip keeping her comfortable. Her hand was cold in mine, skin like paper. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. She'd lost so much weight. The vibrant woman who'd taught me to fish on Okanagan Lake, who'd driven across the province to watch every one of my hockey games, who'd held me when my own marriage fell apart, was now just a whisper of herself. A nurse knocked softly. Mr. Patterson? Mr. Morrison is here. Andrew Morrison had been Mom's lawyer for 30 years. He was 70 now, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. He carried a manila envelope with my mother's handwriting on it. Thomas. He shook my hand. I'm glad you made it. Your mother was very concerned Emma would try something like this. She knew? 6 weeks ago, Emma and Mark came to see her, tried to convince her to sign a new power of attorney, change the will, said you were taking advantage of her, that you'd stolen money. Andrew sat down heavily. Your mother threw them out. Then she called me. He handed me the envelope. She wanted you to have this now, before the end. She was very clear that you should read it immediately if Emma tried to block you. My mother's handwriting on the envelope, for Thomas, truth and consequences. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a letter in her own hand. My dearest Thomas, if you're reading this, it means Emma has done what I feared she would do. I'm so sorry you have to face this pain while also facing the pain of losing me. 6 weeks ago, your sister showed me who she really is. She came to my house with legal documents, with accusations against you, with demands. She wanted me to believe you were stealing from me. She wanted me to cut you out of my will and give her power of attorney. But I'm not senile, my son. I know exactly who paid my mortgage when I got sick and couldn't work. I know who drove me to every chemotherapy appointment. I know who sat with me through the terror of waiting for test results. I know who called every single day for the past 9 months just to hear my voice. And I know who only called when they wanted something. I've changed my will. Emma gets the $25,000 education fund I started for her children. Nothing more. Everything else goes to you, because you've already been taking care of me without expecting anything in return. The house, the investments, the life insurance, all of it. But more than that, I'm leaving you something else. Your freedom. You don't have to forgive her, Thomas. You don't have to keep trying with someone who only sees you as an obstacle to money. I give you permission to let her go. I should have done it years ago. Should have seen the patterns. She's my daughter and I love her. But love doesn't mean accepting cruelty. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to people who hurt you. Live well, my beautiful boy. Find joy. You've spent so much of your life taking care of others. Take care of yourself now. Your mother, Dorothy. My vision blurred. I read it twice, then 3 times. The second document was a revised will, properly witnessed and notarized. Everything to me except that one small trust for Emma's kids. The house in West Vancouver, the investment portfolio, the life insurance policy, the savings accounts, all told, about $3.8 million. The third document was a statutory declaration, signed by my mother and witnessed by her doctor and Andrew Morrison, stating clearly that she was of sound mind, that all her financial transactions with me were voluntary, and that any claims Emma made about financial abuse were categorically false. She made sure you were protected, Andrew said. She knew Emma would try to fight this. I folded the letter carefully. What happens now? Now you say goodbye to your mother. And then we deal with the legal aftermath. He stood. The hospital administration is already preparing a report about Emma's false accusations. They take this very seriously. She could face charges. I don't want that, I said. The words surprised me even as I said them. Andrew raised an eyebrow. Thomas, I mean it. No charges. She gets what Mom left for the grandchildren's education, and that's it. After that, she's out of my life. Completely. That's more generous than she deserves. It's not about what she deserves. It's about what I can live with. I looked at my mother's sleeping face. Mom gave me permission to let her go. I'm taking it. I stayed with Mom for 3 more days. Emma never came back to the hospital. I heard from the nurses that she'd tried once, but when she learned the truth had come out, she'd left without even asking about Mom's condition. Mom woke up a few times, lucid moments between the morphine fog. We talked about the lake house we used to rent every summer, about her garden, the roses she'd loved, about my father, dead now 20 years, and how she'd see him soon. "You read my letter?" she asked on the second day, her voice barely a whisper. "I did, Mom." "Good." She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had. "Promise me, Tommy. Promise you won't waste your life on people who don't treasure you." "I promise. And promise me you'll find some happiness. Some joy. You've been in caretaker mode for so long, you've forgotten how to live for yourself." I couldn't speak, just nodded. She smiled. "There's a woman, Diane. Volunteers at the library on Tuesdays. I told her about you. She lost her husband 2 years ago. I think you two might get along. Even dying, my mother was trying to take care of me. She passed on the 4th day, quietly, in her sleep. I was holding her hand when the monitor's beep went flat. The funeral was small. My mother's friends from her book club, neighbors from West Vancouver, some cousins from Calgary. Emma and Mark showed up late, sat in the back, left before the reception. Andrew Morrison pulled me aside afterward. Emma's lawyer contacted me. "They're going to contest the will." "Of course they are. They'll lose. Your mother's documentation is airtight, but it'll be messy in public." He paused. "Are you sure you don't want to press charges for the hospital incident, the false report? It would strengthen our position." I thought about it, about my daughter's face on that security footage, calculating and cold, about all the years I'd spent trying to be enough for her, trying to fill the gap her mother had left. "No charges," I said. "Let her have her lawyer fees. Let her lose in court. Let her explain to her friends why her own mother cut her out. That's consequence enough. You're a better man than I'd be." "I'm a tired man, Andrew. I just want it over." The will contest took 8 months. Emma's lawyers tried everything. They claimed undue influence, diminished capacity, coercion. They brought in their own expert witnesses. But Mom's doctor testified that she'd been completely lucid when she changed the will. The bank provided records showing I'd been supporting her, not stealing. Her friends from book club testified about conversations where Mom had expressed disappointment in Emma's behavior. And that security footage from the hospital parkade played in court. Emma's own words, her own voice, planning to keep a dying woman from her son for inheritance money. The judge wasn't kind in her ruling. She not only upheld Mom's will but ordered Emma to pay my legal costs. This court finds the contest to be without merit and brought in bad faith for financial gain. The evidence clearly shows that the deceased was of sound mind and had significant, documented reasons for her decisions. I sold the house in West Vancouver. Too many memories, too much space for one person. I kept some of Mom's things, her photo albums, her recipe box, her collection of mystery novels. The rest I donated. I bought a smaller place in Kelowna, close enough to the water that I could smell the lake in the morning and hear the wind moving through the reeds at night. It wasn't the kind of house people brag about. No grand driveway, no wide staircases, no rooms that echoed with emptiness. But it was mine, and it was peaceful. After 42 years of early shifts, steel-toed boots, and the constant grind of the mill, I finally had something I hadn't felt in a long time: stillness. Mom's investment portfolio had been enough to let me retire without fear, without counting every dollar twice. It felt strange at first, like I was wearing a coat that didn't belong to me. I'd worked so long that rest felt like something I hadn't earned, even though I had. 6 months after the court case ended, on a quiet Tuesday that looked like any other, I went to the library. I don't know why I chose that day. Maybe I was tired of sitting in my house with too many thoughts and too much silence. Maybe I missed the comfort of routines, simple, harmless routines. Or maybe some part of me knew what I needed before I did. Grief has a way of making you drift, like a boat without an anchor, until something finally pulls you back to shore. Mom had told me about Diane in her letter, not in a dramatic way, not like she was trying to set up some grand romance. She simply wrote about her like she wrote about everything else, with quiet certainty and a kind of gentle wisdom that always seemed to arrive too late for me to appreciate in the moment. Diane, Mom said, worked at the library. She liked mysteries. She had kind eyes. She had known loss too. When I walked into the library, the familiar scent of paper and dust wrapped around me like an old blanket. It was warm inside, the kind of warmth that doesn't come from heaters but from time, years of people coming and going, leaving pieces of themselves behind in the pages they read. Diane was exactly where Mom said she'd be, restocking the mystery section. She was smaller than I expected, with gray hair pulled back into a practical ponytail and glasses that slipped slightly down her nose as she scanned the shelves. There was something calm about her movements, something unhurried, as if she'd learned long ago that rushing through life didn't make it kinder. I stood there for a moment like an idiot, watching her slide books into place. My heart beat faster than it should have. I hadn't come there to find love. I hadn't come there expecting anything. But grief does strange things. It makes you lonely in ways you can't explain. Lonely even when people are around you. It makes you crave warmth without knowing where to find it. When I finally introduced myself, she looked up and smiled one of those smiles that reaches the eyes. "You must be Dorothy's son," she said softly, like she'd been waiting for me. "Dorothy told me so much about you." 4:15. End quote. Hearing Mom's name spoken out loud by someone else hit me harder than I expected. For a second, I couldn't speak. I just nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. "She was very proud of you," Diane added, and her voice didn't carry pity. It carried certainty. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd spent so much of my life thinking pride was something you earned through achievements, through money, through success, through proving people wrong. But Mom had always loved in a different way. She loved without bargaining. She loved without demanding repayment. We talked for a while in the aisle between shelves, like two people who didn't want to admit they were grateful for company. Diane asked about my move, about the lake, about how I was adjusting to retirement. I told her the truth, that it felt like stepping into a life I hadn't planned for, that some mornings I still woke up expecting to go to work. Then she asked about Mom. Not in a nosy way, not in a way that forced me to relive pain, but in a way that gave me permission to remember her without breaking apart. We had coffee that afternoon. It wasn't romantic, not at first. It was just two people sitting across from each other at a small cafe table, sharing stories like they were trading small gifts. Diane told me about her husband, who'd passed away years ago. She spoke of him with tenderness, not bitterness. I told her about Mom, about her strength, her stubbornness, her sharp sense of humor. I found myself laughing at memories I thought would only make me cry. That was the first surprise. That grief and laughter can sit beside each other without one canceling out the other. We had dinner the next week, then another coffee, then a walk along the lake, bundled in jackets as autumn air started to bite. We moved slowly, carefully, two people who'd both learned the hard way that life was fragile and precious, that love could be taken without warning, that nothing was guaranteed no matter how tightly you tried to hold on. With Diane, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I didn't have to prove anything. I didn't have to win. I could just be. And after everything I'd been through, after the betrayal, the court case, the family cruelty, I realized how exhausted I was from fighting for basic respect. Diane didn't make me fight. She didn't treat love like a transaction. She treated it like a quiet choice you made every day. A year later, I scattered some of Mom's ashes in Okanagan Lake, at the spot where we used to fish. It was early morning, the water smooth as glass, the sky pale with the first light of day. The lake had always been our place. When I was a kid, Mom would pack sandwiches and a thermos of coffee, and we'd sit for hours, talking about everything and nothing, while we waited for fish that didn't always come. Standing there again without her felt unreal. It felt wrong. It felt like the world had quietly shifted off its axis and never bothered to shift back. Diane came with me. She didn't try to speak over the moment. She didn't try to fill silence with comforting cliches. She simply stood beside me and held my hand while I said goodbye. When I released the ashes, they drifted across the water like pale smoke. For a moment, the wind caught them, and I imagined Mom laughing at how dramatic it looked. I imagined her telling me to stop being so serious, to go home and eat something warm, to live. And that was the strange thing about grief. It doesn't only take. Sometimes it gives you clarity you didn't have before. I never heard from Emma again. I heard through the family grapevine that she and Mark had divorced, that she'd moved to Toronto. When I first learned it, I expected to feel something: anger, satisfaction, vindication. But I didn't. All I felt was a vague sadness. Not for her exactly, but for what could have been if things were different, if she had been different, if I had been different, if the world worked the way we wanted instead of the way it was. For a long time, I thought the inheritance was the house, the money, the investments, the security. And yes, those things changed my life. They gave me the ability to retire. They gave me options. They gave me breathing room. But that wasn't Mom's last gift. Her last gift was permission. Permission to stop trying to fix what was broken. Permission to walk away from people who hurt me, even when they were family. Permission to choose myself. I think about her letter often, about the wisdom in those words that hit me like a hammer. Love doesn't mean accepting cruelty. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to people who hurt you. She was right. She had always been right. And it took losing her to finally understand that some battles aren't worth fighting. Some relationships aren't worth saving. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. I'm 64 now. I spend my mornings fishing on the lake, letting the quiet settle into my bones. I spend my afternoons reading the books Mom loved, mysteries, histories, stories about people who survived impossible things. Sometimes I catch myself turning the page and thinking, Mom would like this part. Sometimes I still reach for my phone to call her before remembering I can't. In the evenings, I cook dinner with Diane. We chop vegetables side by side, argue gently about whether garlic should be measured with a spoon or with the heart, laugh when one of us burns something. We talk about everything and nothing about the news, about books, about the strange way time moves faster as you get older. We sit on the porch after dinner and watch the sun go down over the water. And for the first time in years, I feel peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from winning, not the kind that comes from proving someone wrong, but the quiet, honest peace of a life built on respect, boundaries, and love that doesn't demand you bleed for it. I think Mom would approve. I think she'd look at the life I've built from the ashes of the old one and recognize it as exactly what she wanted for me. Not wealth, not revenge, not victory over Emma, just quiet happiness, real happiness, the kind that doesn't need an audience. Some people will show you who they are when the stakes are high enough. Believe them, and then, with grace and dignity, walk away. Protect your peace. Honor the people who honored you. And don't waste your precious, limited time on this earth trying to convince someone to love you the way you deserve. My mother knew that. She tried to teach me for years, in gentle ways. In the end, she had to write it down, make it explicit, give me the permission I didn't know I needed. I forgive Emma, in the sense that I don't carry anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean opening the door to someone who proved they would hurt you for money. It just means I refuse to let what she did define my life. I chose differently. I chose peace. I chose love with someone who values me. I chose days filled with simple joys instead of complex dramas. And every Tuesday, when Diane and I walk through the library together, I think about Mom's last act of love, introducing two lonely people who needed a second chance at happiness. That's the real inheritance. Not the house that sold, not the money in the bank. The wisdom to know what matters, the courage to let go of what doesn't, and the grace to build something new from what remains. If you're facing something similar, if someone you love is showing you their true colors in a crisis, I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to walk away. Blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to abuse, manipulate, or exploit you. Love yourself enough to set boundaries. Honor the people who honored you. And don't be afraid to close chapters that need ending. Life is too short, too precious, too fragile to waste on people who only see you as a means to an end. My mother taught me that. And I'm finally living like I believe it.